You guys are so cute. All right, well, I am very excited about our next guest, Manu Bennett. I'm sure you guys all know who that is, right? Yeah. So just in case you don't, we've got a nice little video montage for you, so hit it, guys.
Please welcome Manu Bennett.
Thank you very much. I'm a New Zealand Maori, which means I'm a Polynesian from the land down in the southern hemisphere. And whenever I come onto a piece of land in my culture, I have to speak to the tangata whenua, we call it, which is the people of the land. Now there's two very special women I met yesterday who gave me this bracelet here. Ladies, are you here somewhere? Oh, please stand up. Please. It's my honor if you both stand up. Thank you, thank you. I want to say I need to come to your level. It's rude for me to stand up here. Thank you. From the Blackfoot tribe, yes. Thank you very much for having me on your land. It's thank you. Yes, yeah. Just you can explain where you're from.
Okay, so I'm from the Blackfoot Nation, which is just about 2 hours south of here. Sorry, I've never spoken in front of this many people before. So I have been doing beadwork ever since I was about, 8? And I started making wristbands like the one that you see here and the one that I gave him. And it's just a way of giving a little piece of me to somebody that I really appreciate. This man's amazing. And as he was talking about the people of the land, that is what we call ourselves too, but we say Nitsitapi. My sister and I are Nitsitapi Pikani.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, how do I get back up here? Hold it, here we go. Can we go from here up onto a speaker? It's moving. When I did that on Spartacus, I'd always go, oh, he's doing something crazy again. Yeah, look, what a journey, my life has been to sort of, bring me to a place like this in front of a bunch of people who appreciate what I do. It wasn't easy getting into what I do. I became an actor and a performing artist because of some tragedy that I had in my young years. I was only 15, 16 years old when my mother was killed in a car accident. And as a young kid with a lot of, stuff to face at that age, I had to find a way to control the anger, to control the sorrow, to control my destiny, I guess. It was either going to go like this, or it was going to go, far away from everyone I loved. Or, the arts were really a true way for me to express who I was in a safe place without, sort of drinking alcohol or stuff. Like most teenagers, I did go through those phases, but what I found, like a role like Crixus, I mean, how much did that guy suffer? How much did that guy roar in victory when he had that one moment? You know, all of these feelings are things that I've felt in my life, and you know, to some degree. And so when I put it there on the screen, I'm trying to put it there like each of you. We all have struggles, we all have feelings, but I try to put it there on the screen in as most accurate way that I possibly can, so that when you're looking at that little box in your living room, it has some sort of, you know, something you might understand, you know, something you might feel. So who felt that about Crixus? What a character. I mean, you know, like I'm not that heroic. I wish I was that heroic, you know. I often think to myself, who was Crixus? You know, who was this guy that actually lived in, in 74 BC and went through these extraordinary, you know, circumstances with Spartacus? And, you know, when I stood alongside Andy Whitfield, and we started portraying this story that had lasted that long, you know, that was retold again and again, because it's so important that we realize as a globe, as a you know, a group of collaborative cultures, that there's an equalizer. You know, I mean, we can all feel like slaves at times. We can all feel the pressure of an empire upon us, that we're just pawns in some sort of economic game, you know. But, you know, I thought Spartacus had a really great way of equalizing and showing everybody of all races and everything that we're all just the same, and you know, we all feel these very fundamentals about life, you know, love, you know, joy, victory, you know, the first touch. You know, these wonderful things that happens to us all. So, you know, I thought it was just a wonderful opportunity to be part of a show that was global and had those messages. Talking about my past, I just want to acknowledge somebody who's here with her family. I went to school in Newcastle, Australia, and when my mother passed away, this young lady down here was you were at my mother's funeral, weren't you? Yeah, with all the rest of the school friends. Sharon O'Brien, down here, who's now Sharon Demmer. She married a local Calgary lad. Go, mate. He told me the first time he saw her, he fell in love and went home to his mother and said, "I've met the woman I'm going to marry." And he did. So Sharon, thanks for coming along. You know, I just, you know, I know you know my past and all of that. It's like I've never had this situation where I've stood in this sort of a scenario and seen anybody from my past like you. So thank you so much for coming along, and to your kids and your husband. Yeah, it's really touching to have you here. Hey. Okay, I'm blabbing. I'm talking away.
This is the first chance I've had to rest in 5 days. This is great. How are you enjoying the con so far?
This, you know, somebody told me this is one of the best cons that happens, and it has been. I mean, you know, oh, whoa. I tell you what, when Calgary calls on a stampede, yeehaw! Yeah, you guys have a stampede, all right. Yeah, there's so many people have shown up to this thing that, you know, I guess for everybody, when these conventions are at their best, it's about numbers. It's about people coming together and everybody celebrating, you know, the film and television industry and the characters that they love. You know, you guys have expressed it the best I've seen. Yeah, well done. Yeah.
So, in telling us a little bit about your past, would you say then, with every character you portray, do you create that emotional connection with that character?
You know, I just think it's that if you've had a feeling, you can find that feeling. It's in a file in your system somewhere. I mean, you know, we all have to get over problems in our lives, but it's there somewhere in a file, you know. So when you know, I'm not a big fan of method acting. Method acting is by rote. You know, I think it taps into the right source, but most of the time with method acting, you tend to get into a corner and you become so intense in your own thing that you forget the other person you're acting opposite against. And I've found that sometimes with method actors, you know, that you know you sort of just think about your own emotional state. You get in there and it's quite. I mean, it can be very, very effective on camera, but I like to think that in in the stories that I've had an opportunity to be a part of as an actor, that, you know, affecting the other character is really important. Who saw the last episode of Arrow? Ow! It's like Mother's Day in a week, isn't it? Yeah. You know, working with Steve and Amel. Steve. You know, that's been a really wonderful opportunity again to see somebody come full circle in their performance. I mean, his performance on that episode was just extraordinary. You know, he really moved leaps ahead as an actor. You know, I mean, when I started Spartacus, I was very fresh, and so was Andy Whitfield, and so was Liam McIntyre when he ended up getting the role, and everybody else. And you got to, you know, in this business, you know, you get onto a series for the first time, and you got to sort of cook. You know, you got to cook and become, you know, more proficient at what you do. And I guess I watched a few people grow like that on Spartacus, and then, you know, I got that opportunity to do The Hobbit, and then went on to Arrow. But coming onto Arrow and seeing, like, you know, Steve and Amel auditioned for Spartacus when they were replacing, you know, when they were getting the new Spartacus. 3 people were flown to New Zealand to do the screen test. It was Liam McIntyre who got the role. It was Steve and Amel. And another guy who I won't name, who was from New York, and that guy got very drunk one night and went to a bar and started yelling out, "I am Spartacus!" And the producers sent him home on a plane the next morning. They heard about it, so that was his unluckiness. But you know, it was so crazy that Stephen was there at that audition, because you know, when I ended up auditioning for Arrow, you know, it was like, am I really going to get to work with this guy? And it was amazing how the wheel had turned and gotten to that point again. But, you know, just watching Stephen, you know, go through these 2 seasons, he's becoming a powerhouse. He's becoming a very good actor. He's very focused. And I'm just, you know, again, like being Crixus opposite Spartacus, I'm feeling that special journey emerging. Even though on this particular show, it's getting pretty diabolic. I can't help myself. I keep my promises, kid.
So in The Hobbit, it never even crossed my mind watching that film that there was an actual person behind this incredible character. Like, it was a masterful job. I fully believed that you were an orc. Did you find it difficult to emote at all? You know, with all
the funny thing was to finding the correct emotion for Azog. You know, how do you think like an orc? Because there's a great saying that says, no villain believes they're the villain. You know, and all I was trying to impress upon the character once I had the idea of playing it was that he had a real objective based upon who he was and what he represented, which is the Orc Empire. So, you know, I thought I'd take some, first of all, I thought I'd take some archetypal characters that have worked. I thought, I've got no idea how to do this. So why don't I look at some of the things that have worked in the past? So the night before I shot my first scene on The Hobbit as Azog, I rented The Empire Strikes Back, and you'll see me in my opening scene as Azog turn around and go, oh, you know, I do this fist pump, which was totally Darth Vader. And then the other thing I watched, because I'd seen this semi-rendered image of what Azog was going to look like, and to me he looked like a shark. He was white. He was a white pointer. He had, you know, just all this, you know, really, you know, skin like a shark. And so I got out Jaws, and I watched Jaws, because I thought Jaws was brilliant in the way that you never saw the shark. You know, you only saw its fin. And I mean, as soon as you heard the music and you saw the fin, you were never going to go in the ocean again in your life. You know what I mean? So in the very first scene that I shot, I said to Peter Jackson, I said, listen, I watched Jaws last night, and I know that Azog is going to, as soon as he turns around, it's like, oh God, this guy's going to kill you. And I just didn't want that to be the case. I wanted him to somehow keep that mystery. So in the opening scene, when the two small orcs come in to apologize because they've lost the hobbits, I was like this, and I was just going like this with my head, saying I don't want excuses, And then as I turned around, I didn't even look up at them. I just sort of kept my head down, and I sort of walked down. And the funny thing was, in the sound stage, there was, when you do motion capture, there's none of the other actors there. It might as well just be this stage here, and me dressed up in this, Gollum, that was played by Andy Serkis. Have you seen the way that he does that process? It looks okay when he does it because he's playing a reptile. So when he's got the little tight bodysuit with all the little balls on it, he doesn't look too strange because he's playing something strange. But when you're wearing a tight lycra bodysuit with little balls on it and a helmet on with a GoPro in your face, you don't feel like Azog. You feel like you've gone along to some yoga class or some kinky German party. You're like, oh, yeah. And you feel really thin because of the lycra. And then, if, in the actual motion capture studio, they have a screen that's showing a semi-rendered version of Azog, and he's very much like a bad 80s video game. It's definitely not up to date because they haven't made the image yet. It's just a grey form. And I looked up at it and I was like in this little outfit and I went like this. And like this big figure just sort of went like this. And it was too fast. And I went, oh, okay, so if I walk normally, it doesn't work. And then I started looking at it and I realized I had to, in order to open up his chest and get his shoulders and everything big, it was like doing Mr. Universe. It was really just these giant muscular poses, and then you had to walk like this. You had to go, and then sort of turn your head like that and go, and then grab your hand out like this to pick him up and do this. It was very, you basically, your costume was something you had to believe was going to be sort of manufactured, and somehow you had to fit inside the energy of that costume and fill it out. But, in terms of getting some emotion to the character, I was on this scene where I was sitting on a pommel horse, like what you use in the gymnastics. And they had this pommel horse on top of this big skateboard. And they said, oh, you got to jump on top of that because that's your wag. And I had no idea what a wag was. I was like, a wag? And he goes, yeah, you got this big wolf. This was all happening really fast. They had me down there and they had to get this film done in, let me backtrack a little bit. The first guy that got cast to play Azog was a 7-foot guy that I went to school with. You don't even know this, do you? You know Shane Jones? You know Bones? Bones got the role. Remember, I don't know whether you remember this. Remember in the playground we were in year 10 or year 11, and Bones right at our school was this big skinny guy, and they called him Bones because he was like 6'6", and he'd be like this. He'd walk around like this, and he'd be like, and everyone would go, Bones, and he'd go. Seriously, he was that kid, right? And one day we're in the playground at Merriweather High School where Sharon and I went, and I remember sitting there and I saw it plain as day. I was in front row seat, and some guy in the year above us came up and was going, "Hey Bones, poking him in the chest," and Bones was sort of doing this, and then all of a sudden he went, bang. And this guy from the year above us just went down like a sack of bricks. He just hit the ground. And we're all like, Bones is born. Within a week or 2 weeks, Bones was playing in our rugby team. A couple of years later, I went back, and he must have been jacking it a bit because he ended up being the biggest guy in Newcastle. 7 foot. He was like the head doorman at a place called the Brewery down on the waterfront, and he was just giant. And so at WWE offered him some stuff, and he, for you Spartacus fans, this is how it happened, right? remember Sedulus? Remember the Germans? When the Germans came in? Remember there was a character called Sedulus who was the giant German who tried to rape Naevia, and then Spartacus cut his face off. And it kind of like was an incredible special effect. His whole face just got cut off and went flying up in the air. Sorry, kids. And anyway, so he came to play Spartacus, and I was like, oh, Bones, geez, mate, unbelievable that we're on a series together. And he was like, yeah. And I said, come round to my house, mate. Let's have dinner. So he came over to my house, and when he came over, he was really excited. And he said, Manu, I've got to tell you, mate, I'm going to go work with Peter Jackson. I got the role to play Azog. And I'd auditioned for Azog. So I was like, oh yeah, bastard. But I was really happy for him. Honestly, I was so happy for him, you know. And so he went down, and I was shooting Spartacus still, and he went down and he did 8 months shooting all the live action, you know, on film with all the other actors. Now, if you remember from Lord of the Rings, all of the orcs had masks, and they were really restricted in terms of the expression with those masks. I mean, the orcs really had only 2 expressions, which was like, and then it was like, you know. So throw it back to the scene in the castle. You can imagine it's like, you know, Azog's here, and he turns around and he goes, you know, I mean, I'm sure Shane didn't do that bad a performance at all. But the thing is, it was restricted because of the nature of masks and costuming. So when Peter Jackson got to the editing room, 3 months out from having to release this film, he realized that it just wasn't working in costume, the Azog character. I mean, you know, Darth Vader was David Proust in the costume, and then they got to the editing room and George Lucas was like, you know, Darth Vader's not working with his American accent voice. And so they went and got James Earl Jones to re-voice the part to make it, you know, the voice of Darth Vader, you know, that big voice. So it was literally a moment like that. And Peter Jackson went, what can we do? And so what it meant was they had to actually remove that performance from the actual film and duplicate a CGI. They thought, let's go use the same technique that we used with Gollum, and let's create Azog as a CGI character, and we'll have to put him over the top of the frame where we've got that live actor working. So that process is a big process. They made this decision 3 months before the premiere. And when I went down to Weta Studios in Wellington, all the guys, all the workers, the workers were freaking out. They didn't think it was possible, you know. But everything's possible. You got to work hard, you know. So anyway, so I got down there, and of course, you know, this process started up. Being CGI, I didn't get to work with any of the other actors. All of that had been done. All the editing had been done. So, you know, when I got on this thing called a warg, which was this pommel horse, I got up on top of it and everything was being rushed. Remember, 3 months until it had to be on film. They're going, okay, Manu, jump up there, that's your warg. We're going to shoot this thing real quick. I'm up there, I'm going like, okay, what is it? It's a wolf. And they're going, yeah, it's a giant white wolf. Your one's white. And I said, it's white. How come it's white? And they said, well, yours is different from everybody else's. I said, it's different? Like, is it different like because it's mine? And he went, yeah, come on, we've got to move on. Yeah, okay, wait. So, but it's mine, right? Like, are we talking like Tonto and the Lone Ranger, and like the Lone Ranger has Silver, the horse, so he whistles and it comes, and so they've got a relationship. He's going, yeah, it's a warg, it's a giant wolf, it's yours, it's white. I said, Peter, if it's mine, then did I have it since it was a pup? And they were tearing their hair out because, you know, it's like the time's ticking, you know. And I was like, Peter, please, I've got to, please just hear me out, right? Do I have a relationship with my warg? Peter Jackson was sitting behind this console where they were doing all their work, and he got up and he went, I beg your pardon? I said, Peter, honestly, just please hear me out. Do I have a relationship with the wag? Can I have a relationship with my wag? And he was like, what do you mean? Like what? And I said, well, look, in this particular scene, I say, you know, it's scripted that we ride up on the wags and they're all up this tree, and I know they're up the tree, right? But I'm playing this scene out for the drama of it, right? So I say this black speech that meant, can you smell their fear? And I'm meant to address the orcs around me with that line. But I said to Peter, Peter, isn't it lunchtime for my wag? Aren't I about to feed these hobbits to my wag? Can I lean down? Now I'm sitting on a pommel horse that ends here. There's no head in front of me. And I said, can I lean down here and can I stroke the neck of my wag? Because it'll be about here, won't it? And he said, yeah. And I said, can I whisper it into my wag's ear? Can I say, Udatulum Nacht? Take it from big to small. That's I love drama like that. So you know. And he was like, yeah, okay, give it a go. So I did, and that's what's in the film. And you know, as an actor, that's what I'm really proud of, is to actually find these little things that take all of this. You know, I mean, it's not just all of. I mean, Crixus and Spartacus and proved it's not about the fighting. It's about the tender moments. It's about other stuff, and all characters have these lights and shades. So you know, the proudest thing I could say about Azog was that I had this one moment to make him emotional, to make him real, to make him soft in a way, you know. And then we used it in the same scene when I walked down the stairs. I said to Peter, "Can I pat his head?" And he went, "Okay, we'll put him in there." So when I walked down the stairs in the castle, I just went like this, you know, patted the air, but they painted the wag in, and it was, yeah, it was great.
So we've only got a few minutes left. I'm very curious about, obviously there's a lot of physicality involved with your roles. Has there ever been a time where you have experienced fear in anything you've been doing?
Most of my, you know, here's a real story about one moment in Spartacus. In Spartacus, I would always do like a preparation for my character that involved my Maori heritage. Hi girls again. You know, and hi everybody. I don't mean to single this out. We all come from cultures where, you know, we've all been in battles. Ancestors have been in battles, and you know, Spartacus was about a man that I didn't have that sort of memory. I didn't have that kind of experience. But one thing I did know was the haka, the Maori haka, right? And I mean, the haka's like it's where Maori get together, and you have to leave your body because you know back in the Maori days, you know, I mean, would have been the same with the Saxons and the Celts and the Vikings. You had weapons that were just, you know, you didn't get shot and it was over in a second. You know, you had weapons that would cut you to pieces. You know, and in order to prepare for that, you know, I mean, you see it in Braveheart. You know, there's men would have had to, you know, turn each other into other. They had to leave themselves and their family and everybody behind and just become warriors, infused by the energy of battle. You know, and so the only way that I could really bring that up in myself was to perform the haka. You know, and I used to do it all the time before my fight scenes because that's my heritage, my Maori heritage. And if I did that, I'd open myself up to what I call wairua. Wairua is the spirit of my ancestors. And if I believed in them and infused myself with them, and I believed in the battles that were fought prior to me, then somehow I infused myself in that whole struggle and I became part of that wave. And hopefully that wave would go through the screen and hit you guys and we'd all share that. So I would do that religiously. Now, on this one day, I was very, very sick. I had one of the worst flus ever. I woke up in the morning and I rang up and I said, guys, I'm like dying in my bed. That day I had to fight all day in the arena. And they said, Manu, we can't do anything, man. Like, you're the guy in front of the camera all day long. And I mean, one day of shooting on Spartacus must have been like, 100 grand, at least, and especially the battle scenes. So it was like, it's on you. So I said, okay, get someone to get the pseudoephedrine and all that sort of stuff. So I rocked up and, I put on the outfit and I had to fight Barker in this one particular scene. And Barker's another Maori boy from New Zealand, and he does the same thing when he fights. And I mean, over there, we did all the fights ourselves, right? There's different rules over here because the liabilities are different. So if you get injured on a set here, you sue people. We can't do that in New Zealand. So the producers would be like, oh, let them go for it. We'd be carried out. We'd be going, Rob, I've got to go to the hospital. It'd be like, oh, yeah, come back, just as long as you're here tomorrow. So I can see Antonio. Antonio is such an incredible Maori, this guy, and he played Barker. I mean, that guy is like, he goes around and he teaches kids how to use the weapons, and Maori kids how to use taiaha and stuff like that. So I have the utmost respect for him. And he was at the back, using his stick and using it like a taiaha, this spear. And I was there going like, oh God, I don't feel good, and Antonio's going to bring it. I know he's going to bring it. And I remember just, getting toward the scene where I had to fight with him, and I could feel the fear. I could feel the fear of knowing that him and I were going to hit it at full volume, and I wasn't quite there. I just didn't feel fully prepared. And it was there in my head. It kept on saying to me, you're not actually ready for this. And he is. And I remember going into this scene, and I had to come in with my shield and sort of block this blow that he did with his spear. And I remember going into it, and I remember just going like, you're only going at 80%. You're only going at 80%. You're not going to get there in time. And Antonio believes in me, but he wasn't that aware that I was just a little bit off cue. So he came in and he was like, and he threw this spear at me, and I went to block it, and I went, oh no, you're too slow. And I remember hitting it, and the moment that I hit it, I knew I was too slow. And his spear went off the shield and straight into my eye. This was happening every day on Spartacus to some degree. And I remember it going into my eye, but I remember instinctually feeling that it was going to happen. And so when it went into my eye, it pushed all the way in, and I remember just going back with it and just sort of like flinging myself over to take the impact a little bit. And I was on the ground, and I was like, I thought my eye had been pulverized. I thought I'd lost my eye for sure. And I was holding my eye, and I looked up and I went, ah! And it's typical when anything happens on the set, everybody goes to the monitor to watch the playback. I'm like, oh God, hey, guys, come on, please. And they're all watching the monitor. And then they came over and they looked at my eye. My eye was like, there was blood all through my eye. But, luckily it was a warning. It was a warning to me about if I want to play that game, if I want to do it at that level, especially with my fellow Māori boy like that, then you got to be in the spirit. You got to be right there. I mean, here it's a little bit different. They'll call them the stunt doubles here, which I don't love, but they do that with Deathstroke sometimes, and I'm like, oh, damn it. I want to do this fight scene, but yeah, Spartacus was, I think one of the extraordinary things about it was just how real it was on set and how much we put into those fight scenes. And I couldn't have been any prouder of all the stunt boys and all the guys that were on Spartacus. It was on another level. It was really extraordinary. Yeah.
Guys, that's all we have time for today. So big round of applause, Manu Bennett.
I'm going back to my booth, so If you want to come over and say hello, I'm somewhere over in the signing booths. Thank you very much. Thank you.